And the first one is the Action Bicycle Club, Ken Ching. Welcome. Good morning.
Good morning, Mayor, councillors. Yes, good morning. So before I get into my submission regarding cycling in general, that's the subject that I wish to speak about. I've made some other details commenting on the financing, on some of the facilities mainly. I believe we should have all those facilities, but as with the metro facility, sports stadium, I'm sure you can find ways to save costs for everyone involved. So just very briefly, I think completing the major cycleway routes as well as continuing with the local cycleway program sooner rather than later will be more cost effective and will reap much more benefits over the long run rather than extending those projects out for the next 10 years. I think it's really important to lead for New Zealand in this matter and because there is much at stake, not just here but globally as well. So, and the third point is in the level of service you've indicated in the long-term plan for transportation, I believe there can be more ambitious targets for the service plan for active travel. So this is the cycleway routes on the smart view for last week, and you can see that well over almost 100,000 trips in a week and approximately maybe 8,000 return trips per day. So cycling is truly alive and well in Christchurch, and this number can only get better when all the other cycleways and connecting routes have been completed. The LTP says that 206 million of it will be spent on the cycleways to create over 100 kilometers of cycleway, and I believe that 50 or 66% of it will be refunded by the central government as well as NZTA. So that means City Council would spend $68 million from their own pockets, and that works out to be about 700,000 per kilometer, and that is rather than the 2.1 million per kilometer of cycleway. And you can get back the 137 million, which could go into other other expenditure. Part of that expenditure that has been spent on the cycleway, more than about 26% of it has gone into intersection upgrades, drainage, and power. So that money is not just spent on the cycleway, but in general spending on updating the city's transportation infrastructure. The cycleway expenditure will fulfill all the new key objectives of the new GPS on land transport, safety for the people who need it most on the streets, accessibility, value for money. You won't find a project per for building road infrastructure that's as cost effective as this one, and of course the environment. I managed to get some data as well, and so the cycling uptake, since you've created the cycleways, have been 40% higher than projected models, and there's been a 17% increase in uptake over the last quarter in 2017. So very optimistic figures for people getting on their bikes in Christchurch, and this is the foundation for creating the accessible city by offering a safe and convenient alternative to automobile use. A lot of the private vehicle, you have to get realistic here, a lot of the private vehicle usage in Christchurch is really quite frivolous. It's something people take from a kilometer, go down to the supermarket, and then carry heaps of plastic bags and so on. It's like single vehicle occupancy for trips around 3 to 5 kilometers as stated in NZTA research, and we cannot continue to condone or promote this behavior or accommodate such behavior if you would like to meet real livable city goals in this city. I noticed that quite a few level of service have been cut from the long-term plan 2018 to 2028. And already in the figures provided for the service of transportation, we are exceeding the projections as stated in this long-term plan, draft long-term plan. So I hope that this particular section will be more ambitious. Of course, having more people uptake and choosing the cycling as a means of transport will also help regenerate the city, because all these spaces that are being used for car parks can be turned into land that is much more valuable. Smaller businesses can come in, and just so much land in the central city can be used for something else. We also hope the City Council would play a more active part in participating in the events surrounding cycling. For example, there's the upcoming Biketober and then the Bike Expo as well. I just wanted to point out, I'm sure you've heard a lot of good things about cycling, but I'd like to point out some, I think, a bit more worrying trends in the country, not just in Christchurch. You have you don't want to count Mexico in it, but actually, when you measure by the OECD, New Zealand is the most obese, overweight country in the world. 66% and of New Zealand, or two out of 3 people might be overweight in this country. And that's costing a lot of money in terms of lost productivity, socio-economic status, healthcare costs, accommodating infrastructure, transport costs. It does cost more to drive your car if you're heavier. And the cost excludes many intangibles, grief from people who live short lives and their families and so on. So there's a lot going on here that is not being spoken about. The Ministry of Health defines active transport as activity at least 30 minutes of brisk walking or about 10 minutes of moderate intensity physical activity 5 days a week. And cycling as a mode of transport ticks almost all those boxes. There was also a level of service that's been cut out on the long-term plan. I believe it's the reinstating psychosafe education program. Correct me if I'm wrong. But maybe you should look into reinstating this for the next 10 years, because 1/5 of the children here are overweight and almost 1/10 of them are obese. So it's very important to provide the safe cycle infrastructure for them to be able to get their physical exercise. Christchurch is also the biggest polluter in New Zealand per capita, 60% of which is from transportation, because 50% of all the trips is really suitable for active modes of transportation instead of driving. So this is again a statistic from NZTA, and that saves you can save almost 1 million tons of CO2 a year just by cutting out on trips that really don't need a person to just drive down the block to get a pint of milk or something. And of course, there's the air pollution cost that's not been factored in as well. Over 75 million just for Christchurch. I've gotten these figures and more or less the figures for the nation, and then just divide it per the population of Christchurch. But you're looking at millions of dollars in terms of social costs and health costs from a lifestyle promoting driving. So I just wanted to say, it's very important for the cycleways to be built. You can say all you want about electric cars or autonomous vehicles, and that's fine, but if Christchurch can't be the city to do cycling well, there's no other city in New Zealand that can do it. You've got a flat city, you've got it's not too spaced out, the weather is nice, even though today is a bit drizzly. It's not always like this. Electric bikes are being adopted in New Zealand in record numbers. There's going to be bike sharing possibly in the near future as well, so having the infrastructure quicker accelerates the uptake of commuter cycling. And personally, in our business, we deal with people all the time who want to cycle, and many people have commented how wonderful it is to have the cycleway. It's helped them gain their confidence, it's helped them explore their own city in ways they've never done before. And so every day I have people who are really grateful for the cycleways, really grateful that, you know, they can get from place to place without too much fear, and have a really high level of comfort in their commuter experience. So please consider not cutting the budget on the cycleways and build them as quick as possible.
Look, thank you very much. I think you must have timed that to virtually the last second for your contribution to the long-term plan, but thank you very much. I love the cartoon. I presume that we're able to download the actual presentation onto the hub. Yeah. Very, very helpful submission. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.